every week I have a choice to make, and that is to choose whether to give you a technical report or a devotional report of the book. And the technical report on this book would be astounding. I mean, there are so many technicalities in this book. We could talk about the co-regnum theory, about the dual reigns of the kings, and Tila and his work on corresponding all those. And he found out that all of the numbers of the mysterious numbers of the Hebrew kings exactly march right down the line with everything that has been found archaeologically. And I mean, you could go home with that and probably use it to start your fire with. And so I made the choice to look at 2 Kings devotionally. Now, for those of you that you love the deep Hebrew word studies, we're not going to do them. We're going to go through the whole book, and I've got for you 8 pictures that are in this book, and they're beautiful pictures. The story of the axe head that swam, the story of the pot of oil that didn't run out, the story of the little boy that God gave to the Shunammite woman, and he died, and Elisha just lays on top of him, nose to nose, eye to eye, cheek to cheek, mouth to mouth, and just laid on top of him, and he came back to life. Those are all beautiful stories. I've always heard them as beautiful stories, but I read just about everything I could looking for, why did God tell us those pretty stories? I mean, what are they, besides cheek to cheek, eye to eye? I mean, what is the story about? I mean, why did he, out of all the billions of things that were happening during these 250 years that this book covers, why did he pick those stories? And we're going to have a good time. We can start right in 1 Kings, in the first chapter, and let me read until we get up there. I thought this was fascinating, and let's read this first paragraph. During the period covering the last 130 years of Israel, that means this is from 852 to 722. That's their last 130 years before they were wiped out and carried away by the Assyrians, and the last 250 years of Judah. And similarly, it's those last days before they were taken away. 2 Kings records the response of the people to these prophets in the order they spoke and wrote. And here are the prophets in chronological order that are represented in this book. Now, this is a galaxy. Can you imagine getting sermons and books from these people? I mean, a good Chuck Swindoll book. I mean, I read almost everything he writes and a lot of other authors, but you know what? I read them and I put them away, and that's it. But did you know that what these guys wrote is going to last forever? Because it's the Word of God. Listen to the galaxy of speakers they had. Elijah, during those years. Elisha, following him. Obadiah, who talked about the doom of Edom. Joel, who explained why everything got eaten up by the grasshoppers and how that's just a prefiguring of the judgment to come. Jonah prophesied when the northern kingdom, when they were at the zenith. And when Jonah was a prophet, the northern kingdom had extended their property to the furthest limits. They had conquered, and they'd almost gotten everything that Solomon and David had in the old days. And they were all the way to the river, that is the Euphrates, and they were just really having a big time. But the only people that were standing in their way of having total prosperity were the Assyrians that lived in Nineveh. And where did God ask him to go? To the bad guys, to the Assyrians in Nineveh. Fascinating. And Jonah prophesied, and following him, Amos, who was from Tekoa, and Hosea, whose wife ran away from him, became a prostitute, and he bought her at the public auction. And he bought her, he took all of his money, and it's the most touching story, and I can't wait till we get there, and he bid all of his money, and someone equaled his bid, and so he bid all of his money and some of his food, and someone equaled that, and so he put on everything he had, and he bought his wife. Bought her back. Such a touching story when we get to that. And after that, Isaiah, who prophesied for 48 years, Micah for 35 years, Nahum for 30 years, Zephaniah, who gives us such an insight, especially that little cute poem at the end, though everything falls apart, you still have the Lord. Jeremiah, 50 years of prophesying and weeping. He was the weeping prophet over the wayward southern kingdom. Habakkuk, actually, but I remember when Swindoll used to pastor in Dallas or Houston or wherever he was down there, he used to go to truck stops and ask people what they thought of Habakkuk. And they all said, well, my kids have that game. And someone else said, the doctor diagnosed me with Habakkuk. And Daniel, who was taken away in the captivity to Babylon and for 70 years prophesied. And then the final prophet that's covered in these books is Ezekiel. Now, there are post-exilic prophets, and we're going to cover them later.